Prepper to Outdoor Adventures. I am Johnny Warrior.
I'm Don.
Yes. So what we want to do today is update you. We know it's been a while since we both got together with you guys on film. Quite a while. You want to tell them why?
Because I have a job and because I'm going to school. So, I mean, I can't always produce quality content.
Yes. Quality content. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about prepping and survivability in prepping, because that's kind of the ongoing curriculum that we've got going online right now, is the Survivability 101. So we thought we'd give you a little bit of a change up and kind of slip in how survivability can go outside of bushcraft outdoors, even the tactical environment, and kind of embed into your everyday environment, right? And you can use survivability in your prepping. Isn't that right, Don? Yes. So why don't you go ahead and give an example. Now, let me preface this with the fact that we are both preppers by definition, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to let Don go ahead and explain a little bit of what his concepts, or what he feels the concept of survivability in prepping curtails. Kind of like how you define it in your prepping. When you're prepping, how does survivability encompass the things that you do, you know, the training that you have, the stuff that you purchased for prepping?
It's kind of a loaded question there, man.
How is that a loaded question?
I mean, prepping and the training, that just increases your survivability. I mean, you need to be able to, you need to strive to be able to keep yourself alive and going and fed and watered and all your internal bodily fluids internal and not external kind of business going on.
Yeah, that's true.
And that means, you know, having food store, having water storage, you know, if it's applicable in your area, you know, have your little medical kit. But I mean, know how to store the food, know how to store the water. You know, over time your stuff can get eaten or...
Well, like, let's use the water as an example. The different levels of how survivability can encompass. First of all, your water plan in itself enhances your survivability. I mean, we got the rules. Remember what we said? The rules of threes, right? Right? 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, 3 hours. I'm sorry, I missed the 3 hours of exposure time in extreme weathers. So, using water as part of your plan, having a water plan as part of your prepping plan, increases your survivability. Making that water potable increases your survivability. Maintaining water hygiene, yes, that is a term. Water hygiene is increasing your survivability. And some of the ways that you do that is through enhanced training and, you know, watching our videos. That way you become super geniuses in regards to survivability. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I, you know, preface a lot of this series with the fact that, you know, when it comes to our bushcraft training and our outdoor training, our tactical training, that we are using our experiences, we are using our knowledge base in order to give you a baseline. Are we, yes, we are subject matter experts, but are we the only way? No, we're simply a way to get it done. This is what we know, what we're comfortable with doing, and what we're comfortable with conveying to you. However, with that being said, there's certain aspects of the training that when you are going to learn, and one of this is like preventive medicine or medical or whatever, there's really one track. There is no other deviation from it. You need to learn from the sources. For instance, getting out there and learning a good EMT basic course is going to increase your survivability. Would you say that's a correct statement?
Yeah, and the survivability of whoever you're going to be around.
Yes. Then also getting up a copy of the NAVMed P5010, which is the preventive medicine manual. The Navy's got it hands down. It's the most readable, most detailed and easily applied source of preventive medicine. It's a huge, valuable asset that you should have in hard copy in your library. You're not going to memorize the whole entire NAVMed P5010, but it's broken down in sections such as potable water in the field, right? Field sanitation. You know, there's all these entomology, you know, field epidemiology. It's broken down into the layman's term where it's easily applied and you can utilize it better. It gives you a lot of ratios relative to using, you know, hyperchlorination, superchlorination, chlorine maintenance, how you measure it, at what measurements you want per part per million in order to maintain water sanitation, etc. All of this knowledge base is going to increase your survivability. Now, as far as foods are concerned, right? Food storage.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people will go and grab just like a plastic bag of rice or beans or some other, you know, dried food like that, you know, your pastas, whatever, and think that the plastic bag that it's in is going to be just fine. But it's not.
Why is it not?
You need a better way of storing that stuff.
Okay, what are some of the things that could happen?
Like a Mylar bag, I mean, put all your stuff in a Mylar bag.
But if we don't use a Mylar bag, what could happen?
If you don't use a Mylar bag, what could happen? You get mold. You're you know, 5 years down the road and you got to pop open your food stores and you got one big chunk of moldy rice sitting in the bottom of your 5-gallon bucket.
Yes.
And you're sitting there looking at it like, well, I can't exactly eat that now, can I?
And see, that's another thing, is the actual storage container that you're putting them in. What he does is Mylar lined plastic buckets. Do you use the gamma lids or do you use the pop lids?
Pop lids.
See, I use gamma lids, but I put moisture and O2 absorbers in my Mylar bags, wrap them, and then I keep the gamma lids closed. And what this does is, now if you just decide to get a Gorilla box and throw them into the Gorilla box, you're going to get bugs, mice, you know.
Bugs.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a little bit of an example with that, not, you know, a while back, but.
Won't be doing that again.
Right. Oh, sorry about that. Then we, you know, so keeping the storage, now, we don't want to take that container and just throw it out into a 102-degree building or something like that. We need to maintain it. Just because it's in a Mylar bag, just because it's in a container, does not mean it shouldn't be maintained with minimal sunlight and a constant temperature. Otherwise, that contributes to your mold issue.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's going to be unavoidable, like if you're putting it into like a cache or something.
Yes.
Out somewhere,
but the caches will be really even more watertight than that. I mean, I know
like
what I do.
The temperature fluctuation.
Yes.
Maybe.
But okay, and that's a good point. How can you maintain that in a cache? Now, for me, deep ground caching actually regulates temperature. Plus, you're putting it in a container that's generally made out of sewer main line, capped with the threaded Teflon tape on the threads, a silica in the tube, and then everything stacked in there. You know, and that can be anything from, you know, one firearm with ammo and some food to food, water, and ammo, you know, medical supplies, whatever, and caching them so that if you lose your primary point, you at least have something spread around to where you can either reconnoiter to take on a offensive to regain, your primary point, or move on, get enough of your cachet collected to where you can move on to a secondary location.
That's what I was thinking about doing a while back, was grabbing a couple of them PVC pipes, and some caps, throwing in, and this is back when Mosin Nagants were cheaper.
Yeah.
Not a little more expensive like they are now. Pick up a couple, cram in some 7.62 by 54, and, you know, a little bit of water, a little bit of food, throw in some desiccant packs and seal it up and bury it.
Now, there's that's still feasible if you're looking off the outset, like Savage or Firearms or whatever, and 5.56 or whatever. There's a lot of firearms makers out there that are still under the $250 mark, where you can get them in 5.56 or 7.62 by 39, right? 308. And but you if you're gonna do that, you really do want a NATO firearm caliber, not something like a, you know, what is it, 700 Win Mag or
300.
Yeah, or 300 Win Mag or whatever. You know, it doesn't seem, that's not, you don't want odd calibers. Although I would love to pack a 454 Casull, it's not practical because the ammo is not really available. So, you know, maintaining your firearms in a manner where you're going to be in a caliber that's highly available. One of the calibers that are generally overlooked, and this has probably been talked to death on so many, but, you know, 22, all right? Now, one of my favorite firearms is the Henry 22 lever action in 22 long rifle, and here's why. It shoots 22 short, all right? It's 22 CB, right? You can use 22 long. In 22 long, you've got your hollow points, you've got your subsonics, you've got your supersonics. There's also a 72 grain weight 22 round that is made. What it basically is, it's the length of a 22 long rifle, but it's a 22 short case, and that 22 is subsonic. But when you're dealing with the subsonic round, there's a lot of kinetic energy in the round, so the ballistics are good. So you're talking about a 72 grain weight lead projectile running at you subsonically. It's got a lot of stored up energy. When it hits you, it's going to release that energy. So there's a lot of different calibers. So you're talking about a round that can take down a little bit bigger game. I mean, if you're really good and accurate, you could take a deer down with that round. Now, definitely, you know, a yote, bobcat, something like that, easy. You know, I don't know that I would challenge a hog or a peccary, you know, a javelina with it, because they have a tendency to have thick skulls. But, you know, I definitely, you know, I've seen 22 Magnum fail on javelina. Yeah, me with those, you know. With those, I think that the best action on that is, you know, a cannon, really. So, you know, and these are all factors that increase your survivability in a long-run event. Now, what are some of those events that you're prepping for? That has a lot to play into how you prep. I mean, if you're prepping for natural disaster, you know, food, water is heavy in natural disaster. That's one of the being hygiene. You know, most people are planning on doing what's called bugging in, or staying at their primary residency and location during natural disaster.
You run out of a lot of stuff really quick.
Well, yes, but you know, like let's say an earthquake, or like here in Oklahoma, a tornado, right? People don't, you know, bug out, but you know, it's good. Like at the before I moved to the Philippines, the home that I was living in had actually a panic room, an above ground panic room that was rated as a tornado shelter, and I kept stores and stocks in there. So if the house went down in a tornado, that would stay up, and I had primary, you know, food, water, shelter in itself, and you know, lights and everything else, and I kept that storage, you know, that stored up really good and rotated the stock out. As far as, you know, if you're doing the economic collapse or whatever, you know, most people in that scenario bug out because they're looking for civil unrest in densely populated areas, increasing your survivability when you're bugging out. That's where the bushcraft or the survival skills come into play, where it's going to go ahead and give you a bigger benefit in your long-term survivability, wouldn't you think?
Don't forget that your ammo and your electronics need those desiccants too. I mean, if you're going to be storing, like I want to be storing some ham radios, I gotta grab some desiccants and some, what are they called? It's guards against electromagnetic and electric.
Like a Faraday cage?
It's a Faraday bag.
A Faraday bag, I gotta look into that. I'm not, that's new to me, but
I mean, even those, you gotta layer them. Like, one bag may not get it, so wrap it in tinfoil, put it in a bag, put that bag in another bag, put that bag in a box, kind of deal.
Oh, okay. I know, you know, Faraday cages, what he's talking about is when you have an EMP or electronic magnetic pulse, it will generally fry all your electronics. Now, like if there's a nuclear airburst detonation, which is actually the primary delivery, everybody thinks about these surface detonations on nuclear projectiles. The reality is the majority of them will be airburst because although there's not so much ground damage, the EMP has more reach. And the EMP is really the damaging aspect. It'll knock a major city into the, you know, Stone Ages, really. Yeah. You know, back in the medieval times. So what he's doing is he is building, or he has a cage or a plan that produces a shield around his electronic devices so that EMP, when that electromagnetic pulse hits it, it's discharged before it hits the electrical device. So it will protect his radios and his equipment so that it doesn't get damaged during the initial EMP.
Yeah. I mean, things like that you could throw, like if you have an electronic optic, or, you know, if you really think a phone's going to be useful or help you, you can throw that in there. But, you know, your radio equipment would be your best bet to throw in a Faraday cage, because no one's going to have cell phones.
Well, that's the first thing that they hit. If they're going to do, if it's going to go nuclear, the satellites are the first thing that they hit, because that's what does all the guidance. That also does the defense strategy for the communications on the missile shield and everything else. Is the, you know, I mean, once the missiles are launched, they're kind of tracking on their own, but up to that point, you know, the first strike is not going to be something that's going to be, you know, an exchange. What's going to happen is there's going to be a launch at the satellites. That'll be the warning, and then there'll be a nuclear launch. So, you know.
No, I mean, all these things will increase your survivability.
Yes.
If you wake up one morning and nothing's working, and you got that 5-gallon bucket of moldy rice, your ham radio's fried, you know, you didn't store any water, where you go from there?
Yeah, where do you go?
That's a really good question.
I mean, you're kind of screwed, right? Are you going to go to the guy that did prep? He prepped for his family, and, you know, he's going to have to protect those assets. He's not, you know, look, as neighbors and community, to a point, I know when I prepped, we prepped boxes that had a couple packages of seeds, a Holy Bible, some rice, some beans, you know, some immediate, and then some ways to grow your food, and then we moved them to the church. You know, hey, you can get more at the church, and you move them along. There's a point where you can prepare to help, right? Or that's the other side of it, is if you're compelled to help, give a percentage, you know, prep with knowing that you're going to tithe 10% to the church, and then just direct everybody that needs assistance to the church so they can help. That's really probably the best route for a community.
I mean, it really depends, in my opinion, on how far everything's gone at that point. If you are prepping, you need to be able to defend your preps. Say a guy was walking down the road, comes to the door, smells food, because after a week without eating, you're probably going to be able to smell the food quite a ways away. So he comes to the door, hey man, can I get some food? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I can spare this. Well, now he knows I got food, obviously. So say he goes down to that church down the road and starts telling other people, hey, who's got food up the road? Maybe we should go ask him. Well, now there's people with kids. Their kids haven't eaten in a week either. So now they all start getting pissed off, you know. It's not a far stretch to say, next thing you know, you got 20, 30 angry people with God knows what in front of your house going, hey, we have nothing, give us what you got. You know, your argument of, well, I took the time and blah, 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 that's pretty much invalid at that point. You have to make a decision.
That's why you should just eat cold food for the first 3 months that you're there, honestly.
Yeah, if you can. Like, well, I mean, the rice and beans be a little...
Well, you just heat the water up and let it soak.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't make any signatures relative to how, look, you know, for instance, like where I was living in conjunction to Oklahoma City would have been a beltway easily for refugees to migrate from the inner city. The center city's in a long-term siege. You know, after about 30 to 60 days, everybody's going to leave. There's no resources. All right. So, you know, all the small towns and the communities that they're going to be, you know, migrating from, right, they're going to lay up as refugees in. So another 30 to 60 days outside of that, they're going to be consuming these concentric rings around the areas that they're coming from. So those communities really have to band together in order to manage that stuff. And increasing your survivability in those type of scenarios are community prepping. It's really the only way. If you're going to bug in, that's really the only way you can bug in and survive, is community prepping. And you got to have that lock and key. I'm talking about where there's a contract where an initial person is assigned as a mayor. You know, there's an administrator. There's somebody who's doing security, somebody who's doing operations, you know, transportation and supply. That way, and everybody's in on the contract, everybody's contributing percentages, and you have one staged area that community goes to. And, you know, in the community that I was at outside Oklahoma City, there was about 10 of us that were doing that. You were actually part of that. It just, you didn't come to the meetings, but you was part of the plan, the layup on it, and we had 3 sites that we were distributing materials through, and it would work. It would, you know, that kind of strategy would work. It's just you got to make sure that you maintain a level of civility and a level of, you know, common understanding and decency and adult, you know. But everybody was pretty much prior military, so that kind of helps. You know, because then it's a discipline thing. You're looking for the greater, the overall objective rather than the whole, you know, getting all butthurt about who's in doing what or what, you know.
I mean, that's kind of touches on another big survivability topic is people who know about your prepping.
Yeah, OPSEC.
Yeah, I mean, if you're telling everybody, hey, I'm a prepper, I do all this, that's driving me nuts, man. It's driving me freaking nuts.
What?
The thing you're doing, it's on
what thing?
right now. The thing.
I don't know what. Go ahead.
They see it.
Who? Nobody sees anything.
Y'all see this, what he's doing.
No, nobody sees anything.
Don't tell everybody about your business. Don't do it. And be very careful and selective who you allow into your inner circles or your groups or whatever you want to call them, your communities, because you let the wrong person know, and like I said before, you end up with 20, 30 people at your door, burn the place to the ground or try to take whatever you got. I mean, it depends. It's really situationally dependent. Because if you think there's going to be police, you know, 2 weeks after EMP hits, I hate to burst your optimistic little bubble, but you're probably wrong. They're probably at the house protecting their families at that point.
Yes. I mean, honestly, well, not only that, I mean, if you're talking about a major event where there's also followed by an economic collapse, or the economic collapse comes, who's going to put themselves in harm's way for free?
Exactly.
You know, there's not. I mean, the honor of that, and you know, integrity of may last, you know, a couple days, but honestly, to a point, you got to worry about your own.
It's gonna start to click with people, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, screw this! I'm gonna go take care of mine." Exactly.
Well, guys, we just, you know, we want to make sure that we're having these kind of conversations. We'll have more of them, and what we're going to try to do is set up is on the chats on Saturday. Old Don here, right? Cutie. Is going to try and connect in with Google Hangout so that he can come on to those as well. We just got to coordinate the timing and make sure the timing's right. So I might have to actually move that over because, you know, well, if I did it Sunday night, it would be Sunday morning here. That would work. Sunday night, it's 14 hours difference between Oklahoma and the Philippines right now. 13 when we spring forward. So we can coordinate something, and maybe we'll just start doing these chats jointly, topic driven on the weekend videos or the hangouts. But we just wanted to make sure you saw the two of us together, that he's still alive, right? That have some topics for thought. And we didn't talk about prepping that much on the channel. We talked so much about bushcraft and survival and EDC and everything else.
Actually, the book idea.
Yeah.
Ask what they would like to see in a survival type book.
That's a good question. Don is actually contemplating writing a book on survival. And there's a lot of books out there on survival. Some of them are just, you know, I told you that, yeah, we're not the only way, but there are some of them that are absolutely ridiculous, and in no way are they a way. So what he's doing is he would like to write another book that's a little different. If you guys got any ideas, comments, suggestions, write them down, or, you know, PM us and let's give him some direction and see where he can focal point his book. That way he can, you know, start to deliver the things that he knows and really get it out there for you guys, okay?
Tell us what you would like to see in a survival book. I mean, scenario based, whatever. What, you know, just throw it up against the wall, see what sticks.
Alright, guys. Till next time, I am Johnny Warrior.
And I'm Don.
And he's Don. And this is Thunderbird Outdoor Adventures. Take it easy.